grateful for that.
You know, Ron, I wanted to ask you. Let's hear it again for Ron, everybody. You know, it's well recognized that you came into this show with a manifesto of sorts, a belief that this show had to embrace a certain amount of realism and break away from the tropes of science fiction, some of the things that had kind of held science fiction back, especially on television in a lot of ways. But tell me about the political stuff, the idea as this show went along that it would really be torn from the day's headlines and delve into issues that you really wouldn't see on most science fiction shows.
Well, I think from the outset, one of the very first things that David and I talked about was the fact that we wanted the show to be relevant, that we thought, you know, let's do a science fiction show that isn't just purely escapist, that isn't about people and civilizations that mean nothing to us. Let's do a show that's more in the model of older and more traditional science fiction that sort of commented on and examined contemporary society through this interesting prism. And I think that while we both have our own, we're both sort of amateur historians, and we were both political science majors. I think we also decided from the outset that the show was not really a soapbox for our particular political viewpoints, and you can't help but let your own sort of worldview leak into what you do. And I don't think either of us fooled ourselves into thinking that it wouldn't. But it was important to us that the show was not really just an opportunity to say, this is what we think the right answer is, and this is what we think the answer to these difficult political and moral questions are. It was really an opportunity to examine them, to simply ask questions, to look at them from a slightly different point of view, to sort of say, here's a group of characters that we now are going to ask you to invest in, and this is what these characters decided in these difficult decisions, and make of that what you will. I think as we got into the series and we started really dealing with more and more of these kinds of things, I tried very hard not to make it simply a way to sort of attack the Bush administration or to sort of advance a certain agenda. And I sort of took the approach that we were going to sort of try to represent all sides of these debates fairly. We would try to sort of take Lincoln's phrase of with charity for all, with malice toward none, and make that what the show is about. That we were going to sort of give everybody sort of their time and their place, and we were going to sort of give these very difficult, very thorny issues a hearing, and sort of watch how characters like Adama and Laura Roslin would grapple with these issues, but not pretend that it was as simple as sort of I think our political instincts wanted it to be. We didn't want to say, well, the liberal point of view is this, therefore the show will promote that, and that at the end of the episode, the captain will say, this is what the right answer was, that it was always going to be very difficult to get to anything resembling a right answer in these very sort of, complicated questions.
Yeah, Eddie, it seemed to me on this show that a lot of times whatever the character believed in most was eventually ripped away from them. It's like everybody was broken down by the circumstances around them and tested. And tell me a little bit, as an actor, I mean, it must have been pretty phenomenal. I mean, I was thinking of the relationship with Ty and the different things that you went through, your character went through with your character's son, and the way things are flipped around. This show really tests the boundaries of what science fiction could be on television.
Well, I think it tested our humanness towards one another. I think I had most response from admirals and people in military hierarchy when they would come up and say thank you to us because of the fact that we had allowed them to see themselves in the way that they really are, in respects of having moments of complete devastation in which we're left laying on the ground in either drugged up or in complete chaos from the weight of what they've done. And many of us never see that because they won't do it in front of people. And they're just strong, and as far as anybody's concerned, this guy's like a rock. And I think that that's really the beauty of what the show did to everybody, not just to Adama.